Mouse, PI for Hire, popped onto my radar around 2 or 3 years back, when its developer, Fumi Games, posted its early gameplay trailer, and immediately I went, dang, that's a good idea. An old-school first-person shooter with a classic rubber hose animation art style, taking a page from the likes of Cuphead for sure, but with an edgier detective noir spin. It was hard not to be hyped for Fumi's creative approach to classic shooter gameplay, and clearly I wasn't alone in the feeling, as pretty quickly Mouse picked up momentum to become one of the most anticipated first-person shooters of the year. Now Mouse PI for Hire is finally here, ready to throw us into a world of gumshoes, femme fatales, and cheese puns.
Jeez Louise, lady. You're in pieces.
Does this rubber hose caper live up to the hype? In today's video, we're gonna find out. But before we begin, I want to give a big thanks to publisher Playside for providing the review key. So let's slam some shells into our boomsticks and sip some fondue, and bounce into the world of Mouse PI for Hire.
But that day was different. She was tight-lipped. Meat on sight, details later. Had to be someone big. Recognizable.
Mouse PI for Hire puts us into the trench coat of the cheese-chugging Jack Pepper, a tough-as-nails private detective solving crimes in the cheesy underbelly of Mouseburg.
A magician? What, like some wacko waving a stale mozzarella stick in front of a bunch of bored middle-aged mice?
Something like that.
We meet Jack while investigating the disappearance of magician Steve Bandle, a war buddy of Jack's who vanished in the middle of one of his shows.
Steve had an assistant, and she lives nearby.
Looking into Bandle's disappearance, it's not long before Jack is thrust into a complex mystery that will take him to all corners of Mouseburg, taking on waves of crooked cops, cultists, and mobsters, all while grilling sneaky politicians, dangerous damsels, and clowns to piece together this epic mystery most foul.
You're drowning in debt, picking up small fries and petty cases. What you need is a big one. And this, Mr. Pepper, is the big one.
Right off the bat, we have to talk about Mouse's big hook, its graphical presentation emulating classic black and white rubber hose animation from the 1920s and 30s, taking inspiration from oldies like Popeye, Betty Boop, Felix the Cat, and of course, the early Walt Disney shorts. Mouse strives to make you feel like you're in a cartoon from 100 years ago. Environments have a textured, hand-painted look to them, while pickups and enemies have a flatter, cel-shaded tone which not only emulates how Mouse's animated inspirations looked, but from a gameplay perspective, naturally separates them from the background, helping them stick out to the player, which is important to do in a game devoid of color. The amount of detail packed into environments is astounding. You can tell the artists went over every inch of every level, adding the subtlest of details, not only for laughs, but to also make the world feel tangible. For example, at Jack's PI office, I got a kick out of seeing band-aids placed over the cracks on his sign. And on a billboard in the lobby, there's a child's hand-drawn flyer for their missing turtle. Mouseburg may be a cartoon, but it feels like an actual lived-in place. What also makes Mouse so charming is just how much it embraces its classic art style and saturates it into every aspect of the game, visually and functionally. Your ammo counter has a unique ammo character for each gun who cheers whenever you fire it. Your health is a happy little heart who becomes more beat up and sad as you take damage. Even your menu cursor is a little ink pen, and during loading screens, there's a guy in the corner animating. This attention to detail even applies to enemy bullet projectiles, which have a hand-drawn texture on them with motion lines behind them, something I didn't catch until I was editing this video. And in general, there's a lot of creative touches that breathe life into some familiar mechanics. For example, there's a waypoint system to help you navigate, and instead of a straightforward arrow or line on the ground or screen, it's a fingerprint duster that reveals a set of footprints in the direction you need to go. I know from looking at my comments on my preview video for Mouse that some are not totally into the black and white look and hope for some sort of color filter. And sure, while a Technicolor look would be neat, I have to stress the amazing work put into utilizing the black and white palette to its fullest. There is a huge variety of environments in this game. Seriously, huge, and each has its own distinct feel and personality. Whether it be a seedy downtown street, a glamorous movie studio, or a hot day in the middle of the woods, nothing looks samey, nothing looks muddled or muddy, and the fact that this was pulled off with black, white, and a lot of gray tone is astonishing. Yes, color is a powerful tool, but tone, contrast, and values is more important, and Mouse is a textbook example of it. The excellent lighting also helps immensely. Nighttime environments sport edge lights on poles to give them shape and separate them. There's pools of light within inky shadows to naturally guide the player, and the skybox is contrasted with a brighter gray tone with depth of field for separation. Flip-flop to this desert film set, there's more white in the environment to give the sense of a hot beating sun, with lighter gray to create shadow and add form. However, the animations are the standout. Enemies animate in the iconic rubbery way that naturally gives them a lot of personality, and their animations for when you make them sleep with the fishes, while wacky, are shockingly gruesome. They spurt a whole lot of quote-unquote ink when shot, and the headshots are particularly visceral. It's amazing how much you can stretch a T rating with 1920s animation. The weapon animations are easily my favorite. On top of being the smoothest animations in the game, they are delightfully creative and full of zany charm. And one of my simple joys in this game is just cycling through the weapons and watching their bouncy, wiggly animations. It's so cool.
Politicians, the big mouse party. Yes, sir, he did rub shoulders with them more than once.
I do have a couple gripes. I wish the NPCs animated just as smoothly during dialogue scenes. While their character art is great, they cycle between 4 or 5 animations that often don't feel in sync with their dialogue, and it did take me out of the immersion a bit.
But if you want them secrets, you gotta help me.
And this is a technical thing, but the cutscenes, which are well done, are a little low in resolution. If you look closely, you can see some pixelation, pretty minor, but when we consider how good and sharp everything else in the game looks, it really sticks out, at least to me. And real quick, if anybody is wondering about performance, on my system it ran like butter, save for a few graphically intensive spots where the frames dipped a bit, but far from anything unplayable. In all, this is one of the coolest looking and artistically impressive first-person shooters I've ever experienced. And if Mouse doesn't win all the art direction awards this year, or at least gets all the nominations, it will be a crime. Oh, and bear with me, I have to gush about the audio too.
Now, the easy way, the quiet way, or the stinky way.
The legendary Troy Baker lends his voice to the main character Jack Pepper, and once again flexes his impressive range, effortlessly conveying the sort of hard-nosed grit you want from a classic noir detective, while lending Jack some laid-back, cool-as-a-cucumber nuances that for me made him instantly likable.
And off they go. I'm not what you call a civilized mouse, but I might need a civilized way to tail them.
The rest of the voice performances for the sizable cast are also excellent, which is good as the dialogue sequences for this game can sometimes be lengthy, and having a performance that is believable goes a long way.
Oh, Jack, I made my piece, okay? I was just wondering, do you ever, second guess it?
The music is fantastic. It's a jazzy, swingy score that perfectly complements the 1920s cartoon violence of this game. The soundtrack is also adaptive, transitioning the music to fit whatever the player is doing, with the big jazz band swelling up as enemies start charging and seamlessly stinging out, horns a-blaring when the player shoots the last shot and gets back to exploring. With non-diegetic cartoon accents and musical flutters sprinkled in to match big actions like blowing up holes in the wall or flipping a simple switch. This is the sort of game big speakers or high-quality headphones were made for. Along with the score and voice work, the moment-to-moment sound design deserves a ton of praise, as it's just as, if not more superb than the visuals. The sounds of guns popping, banging, booming, and the click-clacks of reloading is rich and detailed, along with the thuds, smooshes, and smacks of enemies getting pelted and punched. With cartoony touches thrown in to not only characterize the enemies and their actions, but also tip off the player to what's going on. It's a true audio tapestry, and a sharp one at that, and really transports you into this animated film come to life. Blasting into gameplay, while Mouse has a big narrative focus with plenty of dialogue scenes, sleuthing, and exploration, at its core, it's a pure old-school arena shooter, flexing plenty of violent, fast-paced combat, sporting a beefy arsenal of wild, wiggly weapons, and a vicious roster of enemies just begging for a wallop. A splatty, inky wallop. It feels fantastic to play. The controls are smooth with slick, responsive movement and shooting that is both bombastic and snappy, sure to make Mouse's 90s FPS influences proud. In my head, I just imagine the Doom Marine and Mickey Mouse shaking hands with tears in their eyes. Look what we've created. And I'm happy to say, despite this game borrowing its mechanics from the oldies, it does mix them with more contemporary movement mechanics, lending players a lot of twitchy speed and freedom in the many, many monochromatic arenas. Don't let its happy cartoon exterior fool you. This is a mean FPS, demanding of your skill and more than eager to show you its creative game over screen, especially on its Super Sleuth difficulty. Now, to be clear, it is far from the toughest shooter I've played, and is forgiving in that it will respawn you with full health at a generous checkpoint upon defeat. But it doesn't change the fact that this game got me sweating. When Mouse gets cooking, it really gets cooking. Combat is frantic and intense, pushing you to stay on the move and take advantage of your full repertoire, as well as the environment, which is often littered with classic explosive barrels and heavy hazards to drop.
First try.
Enemies are aggressive to say the least. Gun-toting goons are absurdly accurate and unforgiving, and if you aren't moving, they will literally split your heart in half in a matter of seconds. There are big bruiser types that take a lot of damage and will rip chunks out of your health if left unchecked, and sneaky snipers that will put you down in a handful of shots. Keeping the enemies controlled is the trick to staying topside, specifically stunning enemies before they can barrage you with damage, and much of the robust arsenal facilitates this. The Boomstick, for instance, while a good damage dealer up close, able to one-shot many of the baddies, can also stun from a medium to far range, which not only halts chargers, but also stops the fire of aggressive gun-toters, allowing you to charge them for a put-down shot, or perhaps swap to a long-range damage dealer instead. Stunning is also what makes the Mighty Boot melee kick a must. A swift kick will stun most enemies, even the big boys. It is especially good against the stubborn shield types. And while the sci-fi brain gun, the Jarhead, is designed to make the enemy's noggins go pop, the initial stun effect of it makes it the perfect sort of thing for swap combos, dazing fiends in place so you can whip out a more substantial damage dealer. Speaking of swap combos, some of the weapons I felt were meant to be complements to the consistent damage dealers like the Boomstick and Tommy gun, or a James gun. Anyways, again, some of the weapons I felt were better complements, like the double-barrel shotgun, the Kiss Kiss as Mouse calls it. This one might disappoint the Doom fans at first as it's not terribly powerful up front, lacking the devastation some might expect. However, it lights enemies on fire, making for a whole lot of DPS when you swap to the Boom or James. I should note though, the Kiss Kiss can be upgraded to be more meaty later on. Another example is the De-Varnisher Turpentine gun. While this Roger Rabbit dip spewer will quickly melt away the lesser foes, I found spewing it at the spongier ones not only held them in place, but like the burning of the Kiss Kiss, got their health dissolving so I could finish them off a little faster with one of my other weapons. Something I appreciated is that the game gives you a lot of freedom in movement, complete with special abilities to literally help you soar. Early on, you get spring shoes for double jumps, familiar but handy all the same, but the tail helicopter is a hoot. Obviously handy in platforming and traversal, but in combat can allow you to take advantage of an arena's verticality to get a drop on enemies or reposition yourself. It also let me live out my Inspector Gadget fantasies. Inspector Gadget FPS would be dope, by the way. The only downside to these is the level design can betray them, as every once in a while you'll come across a spot that you should be able to reach, but are unable to because of an invisible wall. I don't mind taking the path the devs want me to take, but if you're gonna limit me, make it make sense. There's other movement abilities you unlock throughout the course of the game, but I'm gonna let you experience those for yourselves. Same with the bevy of combat power-ups littered throughout. Some fun surprises here I just don't want to spoil.
Jack Pepper saves the day and somehow starts an actor's strike.
Each level ends in a boss fight with maybe a mini boss fight or 2 or 3 thrown in, and these are a standout. While most of the bosses are essentially bullet sponges with a hefty health bar to shave down, a style of boss fight I typically find dull in FPSs, they are prevented from being so due to unique environmental obstacles, sometimes gimmicks, that keep you on your toes and offer enjoyable challenge, pushing players to use their movement abilities in particular. For instance, one of the first bosses is a robot that fills the arena with lasers to jump over and explosives to avoid. And later on, you take on one boss driving a fan boat in a swamp, hopping from rickety docks to get shots off and avoid the ones coming at you. It's all pretty well done, creative in design as well as spectacle.
Kinda scrawny for a boss. More like a mini boss.
In all, this is a really fun and surprisingly deep combat system that wants you to use all your tools and use them together. It tests your reflexes while also nudging you to be mindful about how you're fighting, and is happy to smack you down if you're not. And in that, I think Mouse is a game that many FPS diehards, especially those who devour the boom shoots, will get a lot out of. Although I should stress, those who are less versed in FPS games who may want to jump into this because of the art style will find a lot of fun in this too. In fact, this ain't a bad way to introduce someone to the genre, although playing on a lesser difficulty would be wise for them. Of course, Mouse isn't all carnage and mayhem. In between each mission, you go to a downtown hub area. Here you can have conversations with Mouse's charming cast of characters, advancing the plot as well as activating side quests. There's a shop to buy ammo and baseball cards, more on those in a bit, and you can upgrade your weapons at Tammy's shop, done by collecting blueprints.
Make sure to upgrade your boomsticks, Jack. More bang for your buck, right?
Upgrades not only improve the weapon's damage, accuracy, and ammo counts, but can also lend perks like bullets being able to pierce multiple enemies, not to mention an alternate fire for each weapon. And the upgrades are reflected on the gun models themselves, which I've always loved since seeing BioShock do it back in the day. You can also spend your time playing the baseball card minigame, a collectible deck building game that can earn you some goods. While I appreciate any game taking the time to have a full card game designed into it, this one didn't do it for me. I found it boring, and playing it only made me eager to get back into the main gameplay. Some may like it though, and I certainly hope the completionists do, because you have to play a lot of this to get the completion bonus. The main reason to go downtown though is to unlock the game's missions in your PI office, done by pinning up clues you find throughout missions on your crime board, complete with string and push pins. You know, I have to say though, this is maybe the third or fourth game I've seen something like this in. Alan Wake 2 and Deathloop are ones that come to mind, and while I'm on board, so to speak, with this concept, I have always found this sort of thing underwhelming, primarily because the games that have done it, Mouse included, do everything for me. I'm not the one pinning up these clues and deducing myself. I'm just clicking on them and letting the game do it for me. And I just wish I was more involved. I wish I was the one having to figure this stuff out and making the deductions for myself. And while I know the game wants me reading these clues to stay involved in the plot, it's hard for me not to just click through all the clues so I can get the mission unlocked and get back to the action. I wish there was more to this, more reward in it.
Yeah, I don't know.
While we're on the subject of missions, Mouse is packed with them. There are over 20 fun, meaty missions in this game, each with a unique setting, beautifully fleshed out, and brimming with creativity. And honestly, I'm excited to see other players talk about some of the surprises these maps have in store for them. Mouse is also on the long side for an old-school FPS. I think most players will spend around 13 to 15 hours on their first playthrough, maybe upwards of 20 depending on skill level and if they try to do everything. Keep in mind, most retro-style first-person shooters these days are floating around the 8 to 10 hour mark. And I have to say, it's an absolute flex on how creative and talented Fumi Games is, because even in the late hours of the game, there are still inventive scenarios and new mechanics being introduced, not to mention the huge amount of graphical assets on display. Truly, there is a lot packed into this game, and the craftsmanship and polish for all of it is incredible. But on the other hand, I personally felt like Mouse was a bit too long. There was a point where I was ready for it to be done and was getting impatient as it just kept throwing levels at me. It kind of felt like watching Return of the King for the first time and going, dang, how many endings does this have? I don't think it would have hurt if the game was more focused with a few less levels and a few less hours. Granted, that is very subjective, and I was playing this for review in a short window of time. Perhaps my feelings will change on another playthrough at a less crammy pace. But either way, for those who play this, prepare for a hefty amount of boom. The other thing too that I feel was contributing to my impatience is that I did find the story to be on the convoluted side and hard to follow. There's a lot packed into the narrative. There's multiple threads to this case with plenty of side narratives and side tangents, leading Jack down multiple groupings of levels with their own distinctive cast of characters and mysteries. And many a time I caught myself going, wait, why am I here again? Who is this person? What's going on? This is one of those times I wish a game had a codex or some sort of story summary to refresh me on the details. You can look over the clues at any time, which does help, but only so much. Clues are meant to be vague to a degree. That's not to say I didn't enjoy the narrative. I thought the majority of the characters were well done and fun to listen to, and the game features some surprisingly adult themes that had me emotionally invested. And despite some confusion on the journey, it does all come together in the end in a mostly satisfying way. But at the same time, I feel like some editing to this game's story would have done it some wonders. It really felt like it was going down some random tangents. It is refreshing to see Mouse cram in all that it does cram in, and at the high quality it does. But there is something to be said for less is more. While Mouse did overstay its welcome for me a bit, I can't deny this is one of the best FPSs I've played this year. Its combat is highly enjoyable and lends some good challenge, and its overall presentation is among the best I've seen in the genre, period. Whether you're a longtime fan of shooters or someone new to them, Mouse is absolutely worth your time. Fumi Games did a phenomenal job, and I would love to see them top themselves in a sequel. But what are your thoughts on Mouse PI for Hire? Be sure to let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, subscribe, share, and smack that bell. It's a huge help for the algorithm and getting my videos seen by more people. If you want to join my Discord, the link is down below, along with my affiliate links. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there.